Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this inaugural meeting of the Joint Enterprise Delivery Committee today, Thursday the 9th of May, at Staffordshire County Council buildings. The first item on the agenda is the appointment of chairperson. Do I have any nominations for the appointment of chairperson?
I nominate yourself, Councillor White.
I'll second that.
Thank you. In that case, I'm very grateful for your proposal and seconding for the appointment of chairperson. Second item on the agenda is the appointment of vice chairperson. I would like to nominate yourself as vice chairperson.
And I'll second that, please, Chair.
Are you happy to accept?
Thank you very much.
Third item is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, Ms. Humble?
No apologies received, thank you, Chair.
Fourth item is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest in accordance with standing orders? Councillor White.
I don't think it's a material declaration, but just for transparency, I'll declare that I do run a business that's registered in Staffordshire, but it has no commercial connections with either authority.
Thank you. Any others? So for the record, it's just Councillor White, and nobody else is indicating a declaration of interest. Agenda item 5 is Chairperson's update and the terms of reference. I'm really pleased to be chairing this inaugural meeting of the Joint Enterprise Delivery Committee and welcome colleagues from Stoke-on-Trent City Council to the county buildings. Over recent months, we've been working closely on the transfer of responsibilities of the Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire Local Enterprise Partnership to ourselves as the upper tier local authorities for the area in line with guidance from government. The county and city councils have agreed to establish this joint committee to oversee the responsibility that we will now be delivering across Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent geography. And we'll be discussing many of those responsibilities later on in the agenda, but I wanted to take the opportunity to say that we are of course not starting from scratch, and we've always recognised the need to work together given the strong economic linkages between Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. It would be remiss of me not to thank the Local Enterprise Partnership team and those who'd given their time over since 2010, 2011 to delivering on behalf of the County of Staffordshire and the City of Stoke-on-Trent much of the economic agenda and overseeing some really, really great work. So thank you to those people who participated in whatever way they did in the Local Enterprise Partnership. Recent years have, of course, been challenging, not just for the local, but also the national and global economies. And despite this, there are now 75,000 more jobs in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent than there were in 2010. 75,000 more jobs. That's a real tribute to the dynamism of the City of Stoke-on-Trent and the County of Staffordshire that we are able to facilitate the growth of that sort of amount of the economy. Over 72,000 of our residents now have a degree qualification, with the number of people with no qualifications having fallen by over 55,000. These are just some of the highlights. We could point to many, and I want to just reiterate my thanks to the Local Enterprise Partnership for their work over 14 years. Councillor Ashworth, is there anything you would wish to add as we move forward?
I think you're absolutely right, Chair, and that we should thank the officers of the LEP and, of course, the people who sat on the board, and particularly their chairperson. I think it's extremely important that we move forward now in a constructive dialogue to make sure that we are able to cash in on the work that they've done, and I use that term advisedly, because what we want to see in our county now, and certainly in our city, is not just jobs, but good jobs with excellent training opportunities that bring in a healthy wage, that bring self-fulfillment and take us back to the opportunities of becoming a powerhouse of the economy.
Thank you very much, Chair. Firstly, I'll just extend my welcome to County Buildings, Councillor Ashworth, Councillor Watson and your officer team. And it's been a pleasure working with you as we've got this Joint Enterprise Committee up and running. The key now is going to be the doing, of course. There's a lot to do supporting our businesses across the city and the county. And I'm looking forward to getting started with that today. The final thing I will do is just add my thanks to the members of the LEP board over the years and the hard-working employees of the LEP, whose contribution has been enormously appreciated, particularly by those people who've benefited from the good jobs that have been created across the city and the county over the last decade and a half. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add on this item? Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the welcome. I think it's worth just noting a couple of the successes of the LEP, because they really do form some of the work that we'll be carrying on building on the back of. I mean, there's 4 enterprise centres in the city of Stoke-on-Trent that have been funded through the LEP. They're very successful, and the most notably that sticks out when you're driving up the A500, the Ceramic Valley Enterprise Zone and the link road that goes to it. So, you know, physical regeneration and also economic regeneration, and that's the kind of legacy that we are building on from with this committee now. So, yeah.
Thank you. Well said. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I shall move on with your permission to agenda item 6. We've got 3 components to that. 6A, which is the post-local enterprise partnership delivery arrangements, brought to you by Councillor Ashworth. 6B, legacy programme reporting, brought to you by Councillor White, and also the Growth Hub 6C, brought to you by Councillor White. First item then is the post-local enterprise partnership delivery arrangements. Councillor Ashworth, we're with you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to propose that the committee accepts recommendations A to D on page 3 of today's agenda, and that's for the following very good reasons. We're establishing ourselves as a legacy body, and that's really then all about the partnership and working arrangements that we're able to construct between us in order to be effective and efficient. We have 2 fundamental roles, I think it's fair to say. The first and the most immediate is the production of a new economic strategy for the area. We know that we are a geography that's made up of many parts, and we have to ensure that the economic development strategy is good for us all across the city and the county. We need to make sure that existing businesses and future businesses are catered for. We need to be able to scan the horizon of what new technology will bring to us, and particularly green technology. And we need to do that in the spirit of open hands and open minds, so that we can find ways to drive together to find a route to making ourselves a more productive, profitable and richer city and county. So that's the first task, the completion of the economic strategy. As part of that, but also more long-lasting than that, is to ensure that we get a proper voice for business around our table and beyond our table, in the sense of our consultation, the people we listen to, the people we talk to. And that's the current agencies that support businesses, and it's, of course, most critically, businesses themselves. I think it's probably important to say that we have been supported by government to create this particular piece of work as it stands. It's because, without a doubt, if we don't have a clear vision for the city and the county together to go forward as several economic units, to be quite honest about it, then we risk losing out on opportunities that are available to places that are already quite well organised. Now, I'm not saying we're not well organised, but I am saying that we need to be the best organised. We need to be clear about here, now and tomorrow, and we need to be able to get ready to move very, very quickly. So, that's the thinking. The conversations are started with business and with business organisations. They need to move on. Ditto consultation with our entrepreneurs and our universities and so on and so forth. But also, at the same time, there's another piece of work that's quite important to think about. The government guidance is quite clear that the ending of the LEPs meant that monies and projects that the LEPs were managing have to remain within the public sector. And so this is the body that will manage those projects and those accounts. The accountable body will be Staffordshire County Council. It's best positioned to look after that administration, but the decisions will fall to this committee in our conversations with the business sector across the county. So I move the recommendations A to D on page 3, as I said before, and I hope that everyone can agree with that, Chair.
Councillor Watson, any comments?
I would just reiterate what's been said, and looking forward to getting my shoulder behind it and really power it on to the next stage. I think in terms of the next stage, it's good to see that we've got 2 years funding in place, and I think that really gives a great optimism and a great opportunity for the next steps to get some good people in place and get some good results for Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire.
Councillor White?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'd echo that. I think the thing that's always clear when you speak to business owners is that they're not really concerned whether they sit within the city of Stoke-on-Trent or the county of Staffordshire. Almost all of the businesses, certainly in the north of the county, will have employees who live in both. Our interests are tied by geography, and our responsibility is to work together. The thing that I would say, just re-emphasising the point that I made a moment ago, is the thing that's really pleasing is that we're really working together in that spirit of partnership on jointly developing this. You know, the change from the LEP to this arrangement was one that was made for us by government, but I think the way that we're embracing it as the people of Staffordshire is really a pleasure to be part of, because we're really seizing the opportunities that are coming with this.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ashworth. Members of the committee, you've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? Agreed. For the record, that is unanimous. Agenda item 6B is legacy programme reporting. Councillor White, if you would introduce the report, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So one of the requirements of government upon joint enterprise committees is that we report on the legacy activities that were funded through local enterprise partnerships. So that principally is projects that were supported through the Local Growth Fund and the Growing Places Fund programmes, both of which have been managed very successfully by Stoke and Staffordshire LEP and have supported businesses across the city and county through 57 projects that we will continue to monitor and report on. So this item is the report for quarters 3 and 4 of 2023-24 that we have in front of us. Of the 57 projects that are part of this report, and I'll speak about a few of them in a moment, that sit within the county area, 17 of those have completed delivery in their entirety and achieved all outputs. 10 have completed delivery but are yet to achieve all of their outputs. 23 are still in progress and are being actively monitored, and 7 have withdrawn from the process. And further detail on that is contained within the report, and we can dwell upon any items of that that we wish to. So within that arrangement, the other thing to highlight is the Getting Building Fund, which is a £900 million fund announced in 2020 with the intention of supporting economic recovery following the COVID-19 pandemic. That was enormously useful, both within the county and the city areas. And in terms of some of the highlights there, I said that I'd mention a few. So Liberty Park in Lichfield, Berringcut, Four Ashes site in South Staffordshire, Red Hill here in Stafford, and Chatterley Valley in Newcastle under Lyme are really significant employment sites within the county that were funded through these two schemes. In terms of major infrastructure, the Stafford Western Access Route and the Lichfield Southern Bypass were both also funded through the LEP managed funds. Within the skills arena, the Advanced Manufacturing Hub at South Staffordshire College and at Stafford College and at the JCB Academy were all funded through the LEP. The LEP was also active in town centre regeneration schemes in Tamworth and Rugeley, and there is also a legacy within our enterprise centres at Cannock and Silverdale in terms of high quality enterprise space there for start-up and step-up businesses. The final thing that I'll mention before the chairman stops me, but it illustrates the value that the LEP has delivered to the county, is the western extension of I-54, another great piece of co-working between councils, between ourselves, the City of Wolverhampton and South Staffordshire District Council, providing manufacturing land in an area that's dominated by logistics and providing some really great high-skilled jobs with some global quality manufacturers here in Staffordshire, to name but a few.
Thank you, Councillor White. I'm really glad you mentioned I-54. That collaboration between the City of Wolverhampton and South Staffs District Council was one which I'm particularly proud of. To Councillor Ashworth and Councillor Watson, of course, there's been significant funding into the Stoke-on-Trent city area. We'd be grateful if you could just illustrate some of the highlights.
Thank you, Chair. I think probably the biggest, best example of the value of the investment so far has been around Ceramic Valley, the enterprise zone. It's created jobs, it's eased roads tensions, it feeds into future investment, we hope. And basically, without this money, that would not have happened. It's as simple as that. It's a similar story on a much smaller scale with a building in the Spode complex. As people know, it's a fantastically important heritage site, the Spode buildings. And this money was able to regenerate building number 5, which may not have much meanings to people, but if we hadn't been able to do number 5, then we wouldn't have been able to develop some of the other business units in the restaurant, and we wouldn't have been in a position where we can now talk to all the businesses on site, as well as the neighbourhood, about really developing that Spode site as an interesting cultural and employment centre for the town of Stoke and the city of Stoke-on-Trent. So we're absolutely delighted by that. We've also been able to create enterprise space through this money. We are short of small businesses in our city, and it's really very much our job to do whatever we can to build them up, to support them and make them transition from being micro businesses to bigger businesses to step-up businesses. And again, without this investment, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So it's important that we keep this going. It's important that we continue to make sensible, mature decisions that are based on proper perspectives and proper conversations, and I'm sure we can do that.
Thank you. Before we go to the recommendations, I just want to, for the record, make people aware that we are replete with monitoring officers and Section 151 officers during the course of this meeting. You can't see them on camera, but they are certainly present in the room, glowering at myself and Councillor Ashworth to make sure that we are doing this appropriately. This is a serious business that we're involved in, which is oversight of public money, and as such, we have formally qualified people who do the monitoring for us. They're known as Section 151 officers in the local authority jargon, but they're really our accountants to make sure the money's properly spent. So although you can't see those on camera, they are certainly making sure that we're doing a proper job. Councillor White, can I go back to you with the recommendations, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Just one final thing I'll note in terms of the projects is the Ceramic Valley Enterprise Zone that Councillor Ashworth mentioned also overlaps with the Chatterley Valley employment site that I mentioned, which sits within the county area and is a good example of actually how we have been working together as authorities for quite some time in these areas. So the recommendations, and I'll just put my teeth in for these. So the Joint Enterprise Delivery Committee, herein referred to as the Joint Committee, notes that Staffordshire County Council and Stoke-on-Trent City Council has taken over responsibility for the Local Growth Fund and the Getting Building Fund to be overseen by the Joint Committee as part of the transfer of responsibilities from the Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire Local Enterprise Partnership. B, notes the management of these programmes requires frequent reporting to the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities to be undertaken by Staffordshire County Council as the accountable body for these programmes. And finally, C, notes the progress by LGF and GBF schemes as set out in paragraphs 4 to 8 of the report, and delegates responsibility for the finalisation and submission of the LGF and GBF returns for Q3 and Q4 2023-24 to the Section 151 Officer of Staffordshire County Council, the Head of Funding, Business and Enterprise at Staffordshire County Council, and the Senior Business Partner at Staffordshire County Council, in consultation with officers from Stoke-on-Trent City Council as appropriate. I will now take my teeth out again.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? Anybody wanting to read it again? For the record, that is unanimous. Agenda item 6C is concerning the Growth Hub. Councillor White, we're back with you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So final substantive item today, and looking forwards now to the activities that we are going to be supporting through the joint committee, and I'm really pleased to say that it's the Growth Hub, which is one of the great success stories of the LEP. When I founded a business in Staffordshire some years ago, I didn't know where to go to for support that was free of charge, neutral, unbiased, with no agenda behind it other than my success. And happily today, and for some years in Staffordshire, you've been able to do that really easily by going to the Growth Hub, which the LEP has done a very good job of running. And we will now be taking responsibility for that. So the first thing to say is thank you again to the LEP and to the people who've worked in the Growth Hub over that time. Now, in terms of the practicalities of that transfer, Growth Hubs have for some time been burdened by some uncertainty over resources and of long-term funding. And we're keen to address that insofar as we're able to as local authorities, although noting that we would be very grateful if government were minded to provide a long-term funding stream for these activities in the future. So ultimately that decision does not vest here, but what we are able to do is to utilise some of the funding from the LEP together with some short-term funding from government to support the delivery of the Growth Hub up until March 2025, and that's £300,000 of funding from government. Both authorities have already agreed to ring-fence a similar amount of funding from LEP reserves to act as a contingency for funding in future years, which allows us to operate the Growth Hub on a 2-year rolling basis. So that is our support as local authorities, already taken through our cabinets in March here, and I believe in March at the City Council as well. And that provides certainty on a local level through our leadership that the Growth Hub will continue. But I do note that point again, that it would be nice if government were minded to provide that for us. So fundamental to the continuation of the Growth Hub is the recruitment of a new Growth Hub manager who will lead that work. And I'm pleased to announce that we have successfully recruited to that post, and the successful candidate will be starting their role in mid-June. So another element of building that permanence and that establishment into the Growth Hub in its new home within our authorities. As with the government programmes mentioned previously, the transfer of responsibility of the Growth Hub to local authorities means we have some responsibilities in terms of reporting, which includes an annual report, the draft of which for 23-24 we're being asked to approve today. There are various other requirements in terms of monitoring, and in the next couple of months we'll be working on developing our processes for reporting those, which will be delegated to officers. I will look forward to reading out the recommendations in the report when you are minded to ask me to, Chair, but with that I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Councillor Watson and Mrs Glitherow.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate my point from earlier on. You know, it's good that we're seeing optimism in the future with some a fixed plan for funding for the next couple of years. Although, yeah, I'll reiterate Councillor White's point. It would be good to get something more fixed from the government, because that's the way it works. So that's the way to get the best results. So, yeah, looking forward to what the future brings.
Mrs Glitherow.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to reiterate, really, I can't put my teeth in today either. This gives us a really good opportunity with the new Growth Hub manager to focus on the things that are important across the city and the county, which we think really is around supporting small businesses to grow, supporting them to be sustainable over a longer term period, and particularly encouraging new startups, linking in with things like the universities for encouraging entrepreneurs in the city and the county. So it's a really sort of building on the legacy from before, but actually a bold sort of way forward in terms of providing the signposting and advice and support for all of those businesses that want to make a success and create more jobs for the future.
I just want to talk briefly to Councillor Watson's point that he made earlier, which is around the certainty of the funding for a 2-year period. It does allow us to encourage people to come and work in the Growth Hub who are of high quality. People who choose to take a contract want to know that they've got that contract for a decent period of time. Not just for 12 months or 6 months or something like that. The ability to put something out for a couple of years because of the certainty provided by the two local authorities, I think is really valuable, and I think will allow the Growth Hub to deliver on its potential It's done some good work, but it can do even better work with that certainty around it. So thank you for making that point, Councillor Watson. Councillor Ashworth, was there anything you wish to add before I go back to Councillor White for the recommendations?
No, I think everyone's covered it, to be honest.
Thank you very much. So before I read the four recommendations, the final thing I will say in the hope that there are some potential entrepreneurs who might listen to this is do please contact the Growth Hub. Whether you have a business that you've already started up, or preferably if you're thinking of starting one, come and talk to the Growth Hub before you do. There are many things that we can help you with that will get your business off to a flying start and keep you flying if you're already going. And without further ado, I will read the recommendations, which I was not trying to delay doing, I promise. So the recommendations are that the Joint Enterprise Delivery Committee, here after the Joint Committee, notes that Staffordshire County Council, as the accountable body, is to receive £298,250 through the Growth Hub Core Grant for the delivery of the service in 2025-26. B notes that SCC and Stoke-on-Trent City Council have also agreed to ring-fence £298,250 of reserves transferred from the Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire Local Enterprise Partnership to be held as a contingency for the operation of the Growth Hub, allowing an additional year to be funded should the government grant not be available for 2025-26 or any subsequent year. C approves the draft Growth Hub annual report, shown at Appendix 1 in this document, and delegates responsibility for the finalisation and submission of the Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire Growth Hub annual report to the Head of Funding and Business and Enterprise, the Strategic Manager, at Staffordshire County Council, the Strategic Manager for Economy, Culture and Museums at Stoke-on-Trent City Council, and the Senior Finance Business Partner at Staffordshire County Council. And finally, D delegates responsibility for the completion and submission of Schedule 1 and Schedule 3 to Government, to the Head of Funding and Business and Enterprise at Staffordshire County Council, the Strategic Manager for Economy, Culture and Museums at Stoke-on-Trent City Council, and the Senior Finance Business Partner at Staffordshire County Council.
The final part of that recommendation was a real teaser, wasn't it? You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? For the record, that is unanimous. Agenda item 7 is the dates of the next meeting. The next meeting will be held on Thursday, the 28th of November 2024 at 3 p.m. in Stoke-on-Trent City Council. For those watching online, you'll need to book tickets for seats, because if this meeting's anything to go by, it's going to be quite hard to get in. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the meeting is concluded.